Hi there, this is Jen, and thanks so much for joining me today. Today I'm sharing a card using a digital image from Polka Dot Orchard. I've been on the Polka Dot Orchard design team since December, and usually I don't create videos for them because it gives me an opportunity to just kind of relax and not have to worry about creating a video. So I post all my Polka Dot Orchard cards on Facebook and on Instagram. But I thought I'd go ahead and do this card on a video because it's a mixed media card, and it's a technique that I really, really love. And so the image that I'm using from Polka Dot Orchard is called A New Beginning. And I wanted to do some no-line watercoloring for this. And so to do that, when I was editing my digital image, I went ahead and chose the option for, I believe it's Watermark. So you can use Watermark or Grayscale. It just gives a really light image, and that allows me to do some no-line watercoloring where you're not going to see that dark black line from the printer. But I went ahead and set the image aside for now. I'm going to work on the background. And I'm using a piece of Arteza watercolor paper. I don't like using it for watercolor. And so whenever I am going to be heavily using water, I go ahead and pull them out just to get them used up. And I'm going to add layers to my background. And so I'm starting out with a heat emboss layer. So I stamped a red rubber stamp from my stash up in some Versamark embossing ink. And then I'm going to use some gold embossing powder. And I'll just go ahead and take my heat gun and heat that embossing powder up. And then I'm going to go through my stencils, and the stencils that I'm going to be using are this visible image stencil that's called Scribble, and this Tim Holtz stencil, I don't know what it's called, it's just some bunch of little dots. And those are the two stencils I'm going to be using, and I'm going to be using this Prima paper texture paste. It's one of my favorite pastes to use because it's a flat. It's not shiny or glossy or anything, and it's got like a paper texture, and I just really love it. And so I'm just going to add that first Tim Holtz stencil in several areas around my panel, and then I'm going to use the visible image stencil and pretty much do a lot of that. I wanted to leave a little bit of that Tim Holtz stencil showing through with those little dots, and so I made sure to not cover that. But I'll go ahead and take that and set that aside, and then we're going to start on the watercoloring. And I am using my Tombows and some Bristol Smooth cardstock for that. So I printed the image out on the Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I am using number 847 in the Tombow marker. And so I'm just flicking some color towards the base of the flower, and then taking my water and kind of just flicking that out. I don't want a lot of color at the end of the petal, so what I do is go about halfway up the petal with the color, and then I will take a clean brush of water and start at the tip of the petal and kind of push the color back towards the center so that there is a lighter area on the end. And I'm not trying to color the entire petal. I leave on each side of each petal a little bit of white space just so you can see the differentiation between each of the petals. And then for the leaves, I'm using number 177, which is a really kind of like a forest green or a really kind of deep green color. And then I'm going to add in number 346, which is more of a blue green, and I think that gives the leaves really a really pretty effect. And I always try and start at the center or where the darkest area is going to be, and then push that color out because the pigment on the marker gets lighter as it goes out, and so you have your darkest color where you initially put that marker down. And then I will go back in with the main flower and add a little bit more detail by adding the marker in between each petal again, just to give the definition of each of the petals, and then bringing that color out to the end of the petal. For the center, I have no idea what kind of flower this is, and so when I color it up the center, I go ahead and use black. And so I just add a little bit of the marker in the middle of the center of the flower, and then push that color out and then darken it up around the petals. And to finish it off, I did add a little bit of detail with some oil-based water-based colored pencils. And then I fussy cut this out, and I ended up taking that big flower off of the main portion. I just think it looks a little better once I assemble the flower onto my card. And so to go ahead and finish off my background, this panel has dried. I am using some Lindy's in glittering gold, and then I'm also using Creative Expressions, this Pixie Sparkle and Pale Blush. And I think my background, it has too much going on for that pale blush to really show very well. But the Pixie Sparkles are filled with mica. There's a ton of mica in them, and so it gives a nice shine to it. But I do end up going in with some Pixie powder in candy pink to darken it up. And I didn't originally want to do that just because the flower is super vibrant pink, and I didn't want vibrant pink in the background. But I love the pink and gold together. And so what I did to kind of diffuse the pink color that I put in, that candy pink color, I just took a paper towel and blotted off a little bit of that color so that it's a little bit faded and there's more of a gold than a pink. So to assemble this, I am using some very strong adhesive because there is a lot of texture in the background. I tried using liquid glue and it didn't work, and so I'm using a double-sided adhesive that's really strong. And so I'm just going to go ahead and add my pieces. I did add a little bit of white splatter to the background and to the flower. The sentiment I'm using is from an old Technique Tuesday stamp set called Label Love. It's one of my favorite sentiment sets, but I know that they have a lot of other ones that are current in the market today that you can find. And if I can find any, I'll go ahead and leave those below. But the card says life is amazing. I added a few Nuvo drops in, I think it's called Chalkboard. It's the vintage drops. And that will complete this card. I hope you enjoyed. I had an absolute blast. This is my favorite type of card to create. And so I hope you enjoy it too. If you liked this video or found it informative, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. As always, I thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with me, and I hope to see you soon.